Annie wakes to a call from her dad. She recently moved from Philadelphia to California after finishing school. Her dad gives her a pep talk saying that switching cities is a fun experience to learn from. They both miss each other, even though it's only been a few weeks apart. In her free time, Annie smokes blunts and has drinks at the bar. Annie and her friend Jason are torn between going home or staying back. Annie's hesitation is her flight ticket, while Jason feels at home already and sees no reason to leave. The bar quickly becomes Annie's favorite evening spot. Sitting near her are two friends, Tyler and Danny. Tyler dislikes drinking alone and strikes up a conversation with Annie, which soon flows easily between them. Later, the trio ends up at Danny's apartment, chatting about their jobs as Danny offers them drinks and water. Annie, feeling tired, decides to leave. Danny suggests Tyler walk Annie out, but Tyler declines. Outside, Danny checks on Annie to make sure she's all right. He offers again to ask Tyler to accompany her, but Annie says it's unnecessary. The next morning, Annie thinks about texting Tyler. She finally does, and Tyler replies immediately. That evening, over drinks, the two chat. Tyler confides in Annie about disliking her name, which her parents gave her because they had wanted a boy. Though she once tried to change it, she's grown to accept it. Annie thinks the name suits her and sees no reason for her to change it. The conversation takes an emotional turn. Annie realizes their first meeting at the bar wasn't random. Tyler admits she's kissed a few girls before, but the two shift the topic to avoid diving deeper into their feelings and sexuality. That night, Annie broods over what Tyler might want and whether it's worth pursuing. While browsing flight tickets online, Tyler texts her. Annie decides to meet up, despite the late hour, and Tyler takes her to Bill's bar. Bill welcomes Annie warmly and tells her she's welcome anytime. Tyler and Annie can't hide their feelings anymore. Tyler uses affectionate endearments, making Annie smile uncontrollably. The two lean closer, brushing their lips together in a short but electrifying kiss. At home, Tyler and Annie hang out with Danny and Connor. Connor talks about his new girlfriend, who's trans. The group agrees that people's personal lives are their own, and not everyone lives the same way. Tyler thinks Connor struggles with maintaining relationships, while Danny criticizes Tyler for acting like a know-it-all. Despite the tension, the group has fun until late at night. Connor leaves, and Annie prepares to go too. She hopes Tyler will leave with her, but Tyler decides to stay back at Danny's. It's another night for the friends to hang out, this time at Bill's bar. Bill is hosting a poetry night, an event Annie, who loves writing, eagerly enjoys. When it's Annie's turn to present her poem, she reads with a calm demeanor that commands the room's attention. The poem is seemingly about a lover and the joy of emotional connection. It earns her a round of applause. Over drinks, Danny strikes up a conversation with Annie. He tries to offer advice about Tyler, suggesting she shouldn't take Tyler too seriously. Danny, being friends with Tyler, wants to protect Annie without bad-mouthing his friend. Tyler enters the bar with Alicia, who has unresolved issues with Connor stemming from their failed relationship. Spotting Danny with Annie, Tyler wonders why they're hanging out. Annie assures Tyler it's just a coincidence. Tyler's carefree yet slightly concerned attitude towards Annie is apparent. Later, outside the bar, Annie finds Tyler hurriedly smoking a blunt. Impulsively, Tyler admits she likes Annie a lot. Annie smirks and responds that she likes Tyler too. In the following days, Tyler and Annie spend more time with Danny and Connor. They organize a picnic where they laugh, drink, smoke, and play games. The fun spills over to the streets as they run along the walkways. This cements the bond between Tyler and Annie. They can't keep their hands off each other, playing with each other's hair at every opportunity. The lingering stares between them suggest they're eager to explore their growing connection. One night, Annie gets drunk and proposes they move to LA. Tyler, with no plans to leave yet, jokes that if Annie goes, she'll come to visit. Annie's desire to stay close to Tyler intensifies. She tells Jason about her plan to stay, worrying him about how she'll manage. Annie reassures him. She has new friends now. During another hangout, the group debates music tastes, which differ by gender and age. Danny and Connor, older than Tyler and Annie, can't stand the music the younger women enjoy. The boys tease the girls, telling them to grow up. Meanwhile, Tyler and Annie exchange lustful glances, as if they can't wait to be alone. Danny eventually wants to leave, allowing Annie to spend time with Tyler. She asks Tyler to walk her home, but Tyler opts to stay back with Connor. Danny offers to accompany Annie, but she politely declines. Tyler watches Danny's behavior towards Annie closely. Back home, Annie reflects on her feelings for Tyler. Tyler's behavior often contradicts her professed feelings, leaving Annie confused. After a morning jog, Annie meets Jason, who is excited to announce he's back together with his lover, Ben. Jason wants to meet Annie's new friends, but she makes an excuse to avoid introducing them. Jason later takes Annie to a club, where he introduces her to Haley, hoping they'll connect. Things seem promising until Annie spots Tyler across the bar. She excuses herself to join Tyler, who's about to head to another bar, and quickly agrees to tag along, leaving Haley behind. At the new bar, Tyler's familiarity with everyone intrigues Annie. When she asks about it, Tyler explains it's because she's local, unlike Annie and the boys. In the restroom, Tyler pulls out a white substance and sniffs it, offering some to Annie. Hesitant at first, Annie eventually tries it. She finds Tyler incredibly sexy and begins kissing her. Tyler kisses back but stops after a few seconds, leaving Annie wondering why Tyler's signals are so mixed. Back at the bar, Tyler ensures Annie sits across from her while chatting with her other friends. Scott, one of Tyler's friends, places his hands on Tyler's thighs. Annie grows angry as Scott and Tyler get increasingly cozy under the club's blue lights. Annie calls out to Tyler, but her attempts are ignored. Frustrated, Annie storms out. Tyler watches her leave but doesn't follow, continuing her conversation with Scott. Annie, unwilling to end the night, meets up with Danny at a restaurant. They discuss birthdays, with Danny expressing his dislike for celebrating someone simply because they were born on a particular day. Annie disagrees, believing people should be celebrated for both their milestones and existence. During their conversation, Annie shares a past relationship with a woman that ended badly, inspiring her to write poems. Danny admires how she turned heartbreak into creativity. Annie also recounts how she ended up in finance. After her mother passed away, she wanted to stay close to her father, choosing to study finance as a way to remain near him. However, Annie and her dad aren't very open when it comes to showing love for each other. There's an unspoken bond they share. Danny agrees, mentioning that he had a similar relationship with his own dad. His father's career in the Air Force didn't help matters. Danny believes his dad cared little for him while he was alive. Despite this, he holds no grudge and says he doesn't dwell on it anymore. In the quiet mood that follows, Annie holds Danny's hands. Danny gently runs his hand over hers, and suddenly they begin kissing. They stop when Annie pulls away. Danny apologizes, but Annie reassures him there's no need. It was a mistake on both their parts, likely just a spur-of-the-moment thing. Without another word, Annie leaves. The next morning, Annie wakes up to a call from her dad. He tells her how much he misses her and senses she might be feeling down, though Annie brushes it off. Still, her dad encourages her, reminding her that while he wants her to be independent, his home is always open to her. Annie deeply appreciates his efforts. That night, Annie and Danny are at the bar when Tyler shows up. Tyler and Danny's relationship is tense and full of friction, with frequent mild arguments. Another one breaks out as soon as they see each other. Later, Annie asks Danny to help her move a couch she sold, and he agrees. When Tyler returns from the restroom, she suggests dancing. Annie eagerly agrees, and the three of them move to the other side of the bar. Tyler, however, wants to dance with Danny, who refuses and opts to stay seated with a drink. Although Annie agrees to dance, it's clear Tyler's focus is on Danny. Eventually, Tyler joins Danny, laughing and leaning on his shoulders while Annie watches. After some time, Annie heads to the dance floor alone, and Tyler eventually joins her. They dance sensually, drawing Danny's attention. Tyler leans in and kisses Annie, much to Annie's delight. But soon after, Tyler drags Danny to the dance floor, leaving Annie to dance with a stranger. Tyler notices this and grows visibly angry, leaving the dance floor in a huff. She decides to go home and insists Danny take her. Annie suggests they talk about what's bothering her, but Tyler refuses and leaves with Danny. Annie heads to another bar, where she meets a woman who strikes up a conversation. They quickly hit it off, and before long, they're kissing outside. The woman accompanies Annie home, and they share a moment at her apartment. When Annie is finally alone, she feels frustrated and fed up with her situation. Danny, who was supposed to help with the couch, is likely caught up with Tyler, her indecisive lover. That evening, Annie meets Tyler to confront her. Tyler admits that she loves Annie, but only as a friend. She doesn't see them having a long-term relationship. Annie is confused and hurt, questioning why Tyler acts the way she does. Annie doesn't want him doing the sexy looks, the kisses, or the jealousy because friends don't do that. Tyler finally confesses that she's in love with Danny. That's why things with Annie could never go anywhere. Annie struggles to believe it, but Tyler doesn't argue further. Instead, she leaves Annie standing there, stepping into the bar without looking back. Heartbroken, Annie cries before entering the bar. Danny approaches her, apologizing for not helping with the couch. Annie, frustrated, doesn't hold back. When Danny mentions his argument with Tyler, Annie insinuates that the two are probably sleeping together. Danny denies it, but Annie doesn't care. Tyler then appears, asking them to head to Fred's. At Fred's place, Tyler completely ignores Annie, showering all her attention on Danny. She can't keep her hands off him, and Annie feels disjointed, watching as Tyler excludes her entirely. Unable to bear it, Annie leaves without saying a word. Back home, Annie decides she needs a break. She calls her dad and tells him she'll be spending a few days with him, hoping to escape the chaos happening in her life. Over the next few days, Annie distances herself from both Danny and Tyler, regaining her sanity. Before leaving town, Annie and Tyler hang out one last time. Tyler reiterates that she loves Annie as a friend. Annie asks why Tyler approached her in the first place. Was it just to make Danny jealous? Tyler admits it was. Despite the painful truth, they spend the evening chatting, and Annie even walks Tyler to her apartment. Tyler promises to stay in touch, and Annie, despite everything, agrees to keep being friends. The next morning, Annie leaves town to spend a few days with her dad.